Yeah, hi everyone. Howdy McCoskey here. It is May the 5th, which is an interesting day in my world, but I know why you don't. I wanted to come on today to, I'd done 2 videos for you on some group exercises, and I didn't like any of them. I thought they were just junk. And so I said, okay, put them aside, I'll wait. And I've waited, and the topic that comes up, I think, is courage. Because that's something that's going to be required, and I want to explain why you're going to need courage, what I mean by that, what I mean by standing your ground. So I'm going to talk about that in a moment. First is I want to let you know that I will be a guest presenter at the upcoming TAT Foundation. I guess it's an online retreat now. I don't get to travel to the US and do it like the old days. They're the ones who published my book back in 2019, and they've just asked me for my first retreat now, which is interesting in itself. But that's fine. This one's going to be very, very interesting, I think. The other 3 presenters that are part of the weekend are excellent. I think they'll have they would have a lot of really interesting things to say. I've been asked to come and talk about truth and what truth seeking means. So as you can guess from watching my videos, I'm not going to be holding punches on this one. I will be coming as clear and prepared as possible to let people know what that is and what it isn't. But it could be a very interesting weekend for you. It's very cheap. The link is below. I think it's like $35 or $40 for the whole weekend. They try to keep their costs extremely low for people so that anyone can attend that wants to do these things. So the link's below. You can check it out. It's in June, I think June the 12th and 13th. So like I say, I'll be doing one of the talks on Sunday, and I'll be preparing for that later in the month. Okay, but we're here to talk about courage. Standing your ground. Again, some people I still think, and they've probably left. They saw my last spiritual warfare videos, and they still don't understand what I'm talking about. They still didn't understand when I'm saying you can't change the world. It still just didn't clue into what I mean. What it means, though, is, and it's not so much you need to then change yourself, transform yourself. That's partially it. But you have to get to know yourself unbelievably well. Because every single month this goes on, every single 3-month period, the push against you, if you're not going to follow along, is going to be harder and harder. I mean, the push to make you do something you probably don't want to do is going to be harsh. And you have to make decisions on this. Like I say, I talked about this before. You have to make decisions, and you can't, on what's important to you and how you're going to live your life, and what, just the choices you're going to make in your day-to-day living. And then the important part is dig in. Don't back down on whatever your choice is. Don't back away. The harder this gets, the more courage you're going to be required to be potentially the only one not doing it. Feel being the only one not doing what everybody else does, and treating you like the leper, treating you like the evil spaceship that's just dropped in on everybody's world. That's going to be you. It's already there in some cases. But I'm not telling you that you need to have this great courage or whatever to fix anything, make things better, even make things better for yourself, change anything, change the world, even to have some self-respect. That's not why I'm telling you this. I'm telling you this because if you're someone watching this channel, and if you're kind of just not playing games, there's probably a good 1,000 of you, 2,000 of you who watch this channel who on some level are taking all of this stuff very, very seriously. You're taking your own pathway to truth very seriously. And that means if you're going to get to truth, you've got to cross over the barrier of death at some point. Truth gets known after, you can call it befriending your death, but first, before you can befriend it, you might say you've got to go through it. And the transformation power of death is going to require an unbelievable courage to not get sucked into another possible nightmarish game, to not get sucked into some wished for or hoped for or promised thing, kind of like in the game show when you're getting close to the $1 million, but they offer you $50,000 if you'll just stop and call it off and go home now, So you might get offered some really interesting, happy things to stay in the dream, stay in the matrix, stay sleeping. They might try to scare you. They might try to threaten you. They might bring back dead grandma and dead everybody to tell you to come with them or whatever. Who knows what it's going to be? The point is, you're going to need all of your courage. You're going to need all of your understanding, all of your awareness, all of your intensity, all of your energy to be able to cross over to the barrier that you want to cross over to. And if you can't show some courage in a physical body, in a world that is obviously not very real, how are you going to have the courage to handle what's going to happen at death? I mean, seriously. I mean, really, really serious. If you can't decide certain things where you're going to stand your ground on right here, right now, and you're not going to waver on that for any reason, well, how are you building a courageous structure, energetic structure that you're going to take when you need it into the death experience? Or at least you might say into the negation experience, into the experience where everything you've known gets negated, where the rug gets fully pulled out from under you, and you've got to deal with the unknown directly. That's where you're going to need the courage. If you really want to know what you say you want to know, you're going to need the courage then. And you start building it here. You start building it right now. So again, people kind of thought like, oh, well, if you're not going to change the world, then you're just going to be happy with everything going along. No, I'm not. I don't expect anybody to be happy with anything they don't want to be happy with. But it does mean that there are certain areas where it doesn't matter what the push on me will be. The answer is going to be no. Even if it means dying in that moment. It's fine. Totally fine. Because my focus is the totality of the self, right? The totality of truth, the totality of everything. And you've got to start building the courage to be able to handle that in your day-to-day world. Doesn't mean to be an asshole, doesn't mean to be a jerk, it just means one of the very qualities that masculinity has, and that is lost greatly, not just individually in men, but as a society. There's a feminine part meant to be a feminine part to society, there's meant to be a masculine part to society. And one of the pieces of masculinity that is meant to be a part of society is courage. Standing up for oneself, having boundaries and borders, and making sure that if an outside force pushes against those borders or those boundaries, you're willing to die to hold them. That's gone. I mean, that is gone. I mean, look around you. Look around you. It's embarrassing. As a human being should be embarrassed seeing how the average person responds in the world right now. It's embarrassing. Could you imagine if you could go into the after-death state right now and say go into your family line and talk to your grandfather who died at Normandy Beach, died at Stalingrad, died on Guadalcanal, and tell him, I'm afraid to go to the grocery store right now. I'm afraid to walk down the street. Yeah, I'm afraid. This guy took a bullet to the head. because he in his own way felt that there was something worth protecting, felt there was a freedom worth saving. Now, you can argue, of course, that it would have been a false freedom, the freedom that they were believing they were dying for. We can see it wasn't really the same freedom that, yeah, okay, I get that. I get that, they unfortunately were tricked as most everyone else is tricked, but at least they had a line, they had a wall, and they had courage to stand there. Individually, where's going to be your wall? Where's your line? Where's your line in the sand? And again, you have to be comfortable that you might be the only one who will hold on to that line. And the ramifications for holding that line might be harsh. The further this goes on, might be harsh. Are you going to cave? Are you going to cave in? Because if your goal is the knowledge of ultimate truth, if you have an ultimate question, you want to know what God is, you want to know what death is, you want to know what the meaning of life is, you want to know who you are, whatever. If that's at the core of your being, and if you don't have courage as part of your makeup, you're never going to get it. Simple as that. It's just not going to happen. Not going to happen. So again, I'm not asking you to do this to be happier, to have a better world, to feel better about yourself, although you probably would get some self-respect, more courage to show. It's to get you ready for that you can have your question answered, that you can cross over. You can cross over and you can complete your task. Right? I talked about 4 things you need as a foundational basis. Honesty. Incredible. That's important. You have to be honest with yourself, particularly, and honest with what you find on your search, not to make it look better or look worse to answer what you wish would be. Honesty. Commitment. You have to put everything into it. You have to decide that this is where your energy is going. This is where your focus is going to be. 3, you need courage, because as you get closer and closer and go further and further and drop more and more, it's going to get harder and harder and harder to keep doing it. It's going to get more and more and more frightening. Courage. And 4 is death. Dealing with death, the understanding of death, knowing that death is going to end your character's time in the dream. And can you bring what is this powerful force into your day-to-day life, into your moment? Not that you're waiting for death in 2 weeks, 5 years, 20 years, 20 seconds. It's like it's in your life now. It's allowing you to, it's guiding you in such a way that you make choices based on, if this is the last thing you do in your life, you're happy with your choice. If at the end of it they say, and you die 10 minutes from now, you can say, yeah, good choice, no problem. And if you keep doing that constantly, if every choice you're making is going to be the choice that if you die in 20 minutes, you're going to say good choice, you'll still be happy, even if you go through 20, 30 years, because you won't be looking back and saying, I should have done something different. I got a regret about that. You made the choice that you were happy making, that if you die in 10 minutes, boom. These are some of the things that working with death teaches you. So I think that's going to be our first group exercise now. I had a couple of exercises like I say, I put into video form, and they sucked. They were not good. So I think we may have to do an actual death exercise as to have to get us moving into the right framework. Because it's not a morbid thing. It's not a scary thing, actually. It's empowering. When you embrace any part of death, like Shiva is death in the Hindu tradition, right? He's a destroyer. But from the destruction comes the possibility of incredible new growth, of incredible new everything. You can't build the new without tearing down the old, right? Doesn't matter what it is. If you want to stop being an alcoholic, well, you've got to tear down the need to drink. You got to stop drinking, which is an act of destruction, in order to possibly build a new thing after that, which is a life of not drinking, right? So there, if you want to build a new house, you can't just build over top of the old one. You have to tear the old one down. You have to get rid of it. It served its purpose. Okay, it did fine. Maybe you liked it, maybe you didn't like it, but it's time for something new. And it's that force that allows that transformation to happen. It allows the power of what can come next. But if you try to skip the step, if you try to skip the destructive death part, the Shiva part of it, you never get to the other side. You're always stuck on the, I'm frightened by the destructive force. Well, don't be. Start allowing it into your life. Start communicating with it. Start talking to it. Start to get to know it. Because the more of a connection you have with your death, the more courage you're going to have, because you're not as afraid of what might come. You're more afraid of not living now. Yeah. So that's that. That's what I want to talk to you about today. Courage. A few more videos to go. They'll come up. A few more interviews to do. They'll come up as the month goes on. The part 2 of the Holy Grail video I will shoot sometime this weekend. I might do it on Sunday, Monday kind of thing, because it does take this one is so challenging now, because the first part was more like an overview. Now we're going to get into Wolfram von Eisenbach, and we're going to start trying to define what the Grail might actually be and how you might access it. So we're going to go from information and concept to some theory and some practice. So it's taking me a while to put that together. It's still really cold out here. I've been hoping I wanted to do this video outside, but it's not snowing. It hasn't snowed for 2 days, 3 days, something like that. Fantastic. But it's still pretty cold, so it's not warm enough to go out and shoot a video yet. But I'll be really looking forward to when I get to do that for you. Beyond that, I guess it's to say, thanks for sharing the journey together. Thanks for, I'm not just running this channel and sharing this stuff to, make myself feel good or anything, or it's because I feel that my challenges and you might say the work I've done might have value to someone else. It doesn't mean it will, might not. You may watch this and think that was a waste of my time. But that's okay, because somebody else won't. Somebody else might take this and it might be useful for them. And so that's why I keep doing it. And I keep feeling that as long as I still feel that people out there are getting value from me doing this, then I'll keep doing it. When it comes to courage, by the way, this just came to mind before I started the video. I'll mention it now. One of the ways of dealing with challenge, which is part of what courage is. Courage is dealing with challenge. How to deal clearly with challenge. And that comes from, I'll talk about how we'll be going into Castaneda maybe in the future, but Castaneda is something called the Stalker's Rule. And the Stalker's Rule is a specific seven-point step process of how to deal with any challenge you're under. So we can look into that in a future video. Many of you will have read that. You'll know some of what it is. You might want to hear some detail of how I see what the Stalker's Rule is, the seven parts of it, and how it applies. I'll be honest, I haven't used them myself in quite a long time. I used to, many years ago, 15 years ago or so, when a challenge came to me, the equivalent of battle. Any challenge is a type of battle. I would put these 7 steps into process, and things tended to go a little smoother, actually, even though it might get harder. The other word I thought of in all this is the word retreat, because I mentioned that with the TAT Retreat that I'm doing. So normally, in this case, people think of the word retreat as a place you go to be in silence or quiet, or a place to group with other people who will work on similar topics together. But in the standpoint of battle usually, when you say the word retreat, people think it means to run away. It means the opposite of courage, being cowardly. And that's not actually true. I mean, if someone just runs away simply to run away, then there's no courage. But the word retreat actually means, if you break the word down properly, it means retreat, To treat again is what it would mean if you break it into its Latin format. To treat again. In a sense, it means the battle's come on us. It's not going the way we want it to go. We need to step back and re-prepare. So we're going to give up the hill. We're going to retreat. We're going to stop the fight, but not because we're running away. We're going to retreat. We're going to go somewhere else. We're going to sit down. We're going to look at our situation, look at our options, look at where we are, and then find a way that we can return to battle in a superior way, to return to the fight in a superior manner. So this can be another part of your courage. Part of the courage might be in a certain moment you need to retreat. You need to back away from a certain situation because you can see that you will not win at this exact moment. You will actually get steamrolled. So it doesn't, you're not losing courage to retreat as long as you're going to re-examine the situation, re-examine how you're acting in it, re-examine your entire presentation or your direction, and make changes, and then return to the battlefield, you might say, right? There's no problem with being down 2-0 in the first period if you go in the dressing room and figure out what you're doing wrong, make some changes to your game plan and go out, and all of a sudden it's 2-2 in the second period because you've made the right choices. If you just go in at the end of the first period and start bashing yourself over the head and yell at all your players, and well, all of a sudden it's 5-0 in the second period. You have to take your periods of almost like space or break as a way to retreat if necessary and re-go over in order to have a new game plan, and then have the courage to go forward with it, to say that one didn't work, that's not the way to go, but I now, from my proper examination, this will be. And I'm saying that because the word retreat is an important part of the Stalker's rule. The Stalker knows, I think it's rule 4, rule 5, it's the need to step away from the battle as needed in order to reassess it at times, in order to step back. And certainly as our scenario that we're in right now, as this changes on a daily, weekly basis, as this thing, we think we've got something figured out, and then a week later, we get thrown a giant curveball, and when we have no idea what's just going on, that's a good time to retreat. That's a good time to, okay, I gotta take a few hours here and just, what's going on? How does that fit in with where my line is, or what's important in my life? Okay. And now you're ready. Now you're ready to go back at it. Okay, so I've finished my video. My said I would talk for 8 minutes, and I've talked for 20-some minutes. I hope there's something of value to you in this. I don't mean to have courage just to get yourself in trouble for the sake of getting into trouble, right? I'm saying to have courage so that at the end of the day, you can look yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, it was a tough day, but I did okay. I wish the day would have been a little different. I wish I didn't have to go through this, and I wish I didn't have to go through that, and I wish I didn't have to deal with that, but I handled it. I handled it okay. I didn't get pushed around. I handled it okay. I didn't create harm or difficulty or I didn't create a problem. But I created more self-respect. I created more honesty within myself. I strengthened my commitment. I didn't hide from the force of death. I had courage. Okay, let's leave it at that. Given how some of these videos have gone, I'm going to assume already that my message is going to be not understood by a lot of people. So there may have to be another one. I may have to do a video in a day or two to answer questions if I find that no one's getting what I just said. We'll see. Otherwise, expect a thing on the Holy Grail like Monday, Tuesday, and I'm hopeful that this Holy Grail video is going to be piercing, presenting some things you've never even thought about before with the Grail, and at the same time giving you lots of space to take that into yourself, and because the Grail is an inner journey, kind of. It's inner work that has an outer component that you can take that and put that into potentially into your day-to-day work right now, because again, we are we are in bizarre times. We are in bizarre times, and while we're in it alone for a while right now, we can share this strange, alone, nutty journey together, and maybe we'll figure a few things out that will make the crossover point a little less scary and a little less frightening, and our trip to the unknown will be strong as we stay courageous together. See you soon. Thanks for your support.